Please enter your passcode. Code is confirmed. All attendees have been muted. You can mute your line by pressing *6. Please enter your personal identification number or PIN followed by the pound or hash key. When you hear, you be the 24th person to join the meeting.
If you raise your hand, I'll know then that you have a question or want to make a comment. And everybody's logged in, looks like, and you can double check that you have a phone in front of your name there on the participant list. And looks like everybody's done that, so I think we're good to go there. And this is our, we're going to talk how to write that grant. And let's just be sure that we're clear on how we're going to do our participation. As I said, everybody's muted. Raise your hand, and everybody should know where that hand signal is there underneath the participant list in the front.
Now muted.
If you'll wave that, then I'll see that you're wanting to comment or make say or ask a question. So we're going to start here a little bit. And if you remember back when Angela McBride was talking to us about developing your career, and that's why we're doing all these career developers sessions. She told you that you're going to need to be writing grants, and so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And it's a short, 1-hour session. I'll just kind of rattle on. I'm going to talk about some tips and so on, and I'll do my disclaimer now. I'm talking from my experience with grants and from the experience at my institution, but I want you to be sure to ask how things are done at your faculty and at your school where you're going to be doing grants. But anyway, I'm taking the position that all of you are going to be writing grants, whether you're doctorally prepared or master's prepared or whatever your academic preparation is or whatever setting you're in. Even if you end up, doing a lot of work in nursing service, all of our work is funded by grants. So I have kind of pulled together from people who have written grants their key advice. Well, Vicki Champion, who is she's our researcher at Indiana University School of Nursing. She's our R01 grant funded person. She thinks that it's about persuading, and you're trying to persuade whoever's giving you the funding that your proposal is the best. So she writes her grants to persuade people that what she's seeking funding for is, and what her research is about breast cancer and using mammograms and a little bit about patient teaching for getting them to their mammograms. Anyway, she does all her work to persuade the agencies that her work is the most important in the world. And many of you have met Diane Skiba. She, is the technology guru of nursing education, and she's gobs of grants. She is really successful. I admire all that she's done, and I've served on several grants with her, written, with her. And she would have you know that it's a lot of work. So you have to plan ahead and think about, do you have the time and how are you going to time going? And then something that a colleague of mine years and years ago had said that just resonated with me. She says it's just a matter of logic. And I have just found that to be ever so true over my years of writing grants, that you need thinking, everything has to have a logical flow. And when I'm a reviewer of a grant and you can see that step not fit with step B and C, the person isn't thinking logically about what's going to happen here with this grant. So if you can have a sense of logic, that kind of, for me, it took the overwhelming nature of writing the grant, because I know I could think logically. So that was a good tip for me. And you heard Angela say, if you're going to have a career and be successful, you're going to need funds. And for me, I will say to you that my passion was and is writing online courses, and that's a lot of money. You need first of all, you need release time, you need instructional designers, you need tech people, you need a whole team around you. And in order for me to do what I love most, I needed to have money. So it was worth the effort to have the money to do what I love best in nursing. And then Terry Valiga, who is now at Duke University at their Center of Excellence in Nursing Education, she would say that the money that you get from the grants and the funds that you need will help develop the evidence for practice. And of course, she was talking specifically about developing the evidence for practice in nursing education. We need, Lord knows, lots of evidence to guide what we're doing with our students in our teaching and learning practice. But it really holds true for any practice, clinical practice. All of you have something that you're trying to, have a evidence for practice base for. So again, we're going to need grants to do that. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And here's and you put in red, you are going to write a grant. And I do think probably all of you at some point in time are, and I would love to hope going to do it sooner than later. And I'm talking to the cohort 2 who are just incoming students. I'm talking to the scholars in cohort 1, masters and doctoral, and I'm talking to the faculty and the mentors, because we want to get as much money as we can for nursing research and keep moving science forward. Talk a little bit about what's fundable, where to find the money, planning you need to do about it, just the elements of a grant proposal, and the process, and then I rattle off everything that I could remember that helped me write grants. So they're just kind of my tips. They've worked for me, and maybe they'll work for you. So that's the agenda. And usually on these career builders, I tend to talk a lot because I love these topics. But you stop me, and I'll try to remember to stop every now and then for some questions and answers. So, okay. How do you know what would be fundable, and where are you going to get your ideas for writing these grants? And certainly that comes from things that meet a need. For Vicki Champion in her breast cancer research, breast cancer was, or it's higher, I don't know if it's number one anymore as a health priority, but certainly it's a big health problem. We need to help women understand how to, get their programs and those kinds of things. So her research really was meeting the national health care need. So that's a good example. You think about, from my perspective, when doing those online courses, there was a need to make lots of courses accessible to students. So that met another kind of need and those kinds of funds. Certainly another place for grants is gaps in research, and those of you that are doctoral students, you're certainly doing those reviews of LITS and the area that you're doing research, and probably those of you that are in the master's programs, you're doing certainly literature reviews and so on, that you're working where some of the problems that you have in mind, there just isn't anything, the evidence isn't there. So certainly that's a good area to go looking, thinking about writing a grant. And then here is another place to get ideas, is projects you are currently working on, and a corollary there is always to be working on projects that could be funded. And that's, from your classroom, lots of you are working on, learn how to use simulations in your teaching. And if you're working on a project, maybe you can see the next steps for it, and you could do so much more if you had some money. So be prepared to think about, how you could ask for funds, what are the gaps in the simulation research, and certainly you can translate this if you're more interested in the clinical practice side of the grant funding. And certainly if the call for proposal and you see that somebody's interested in funding something particular and it's a project that you are doing some work in, that's a great place to get an idea for. And my biggest grant came from somebody from the vice chancellor at the university, saw a call for some funding from the Department of Education, and he knew that was something that I was working on. And if he had sent that to me and I saw that there was a match, then I would have happened. So watch for those calls. And then another way to approach this is you have a career plan, and I know Angela McBride talked to you about having a focus and having a strategic plan for developing your refocus area and kind of keeping it all fitting together. So if you have a program of research and something that's going to fit with that, you're going to certainly be wanting to look for grants in those areas. So those are some quick ideas of how to come up with the ideas for grants. And sometimes it's just an idea that's in the back of your mind. So you want money. Where can you go get it? And there's some quick way sources, and then there's some that certainly require much more more extensive proposal to obtain. But I would say to be sure that you are looking at all of these sources, and I would start at your School of Nursing, because most schools, particularly if they're of any size, have some internal funds that are used to stimulate research or project development for the faculty there. So look and see what's available. And the funding can be to support nursing education kinds of projects, or certainly the clinical research projects. So start there, and then next go to your campus or your college level. And just yesterday, we have a teaching learning center on our campus, and I know several of you do too. I saw a call for something about a curriculum development. They wanted there was money available to help people do curriculum work that would develop a particular kind of course that might fit with something you're interested in. There was another call for integrating technology into your courses, and there, simulations, PDAs, all those kinds of things that you're interested in doing. Lots of the college campuses have they're all funds, dollars or whatever, but it's a great start for getting the grants going, getting a little bit of money to help you. And you can look at your nursing organizations. Sigma Theta Tau has quite a few grants. They have a whole grants program. Some of them are small, some of them are pretty substantial in terms of the money. American Association of Critical Care Nurses, any clinical nursing organization, typically there is one or two grants for research projects or clinically related projects. So look there. Lots of times the hospitals have funding, so don't discount that either. And then you can go on to the health-related agencies, and like the Alzheimer's Association, I think they have some funding. American Heart, several of my colleagues have received some nice funding from the Heart Association, and National Kidney as well. So if you're doing clinical research, and you can look to those kinds of associations. And there's nursing agencies specific, HRSA, that's Health Resources Administration. It's broader than nursing, but this is a funding agency that funds lots of interesting projects related to curriculum, and we've been funding some projects related to integrating technologies into nursing education and faculty development. And Diane Skiban, Helen Connors, and Pam Jeffries and I have some funding from them to do faculty development for getting the technology integrated into the curriculum. And there's the National Institute of Nursing Research. That's another place to look for these. That's the National Institutes of Health. And those of you that are your doctoral students, you'll be looking at those awards, and those that are faculty that are doing research. That's the big money there. There's Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and you all. So that's a great resource. And the Department of Education has money, and many other sources. And actually, let me just stop here. I'm going to ask for questions, and then I'm going to ask does it have other resources that they want to share where they have either found money or heard of money that's available? And particularly, let's use this as networking, because if there's anything that's on your campus or in your community that's being called for that might be interested in getting a grant, let's hear that. So I'll stop talking, and you guys either raise your hand and I'll call on you, or push *6 to unmute. Does anybody want to add to our list? Tracy.
One of the places that I've been looking is the National Association of School Nurses. They have funding for different topics that are related to children and health.
Will they fit with your research area?
Yes. Actually, I'm going to be working on one shortly for my research area.
Oh, great. Well, this is exciting. We wanted to hear back, semester, how you're doing.
Okay.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
And I hope I give you some tips here, too, thinking it through. But I know you have some great faculty members who are helping you along the way, too. So, anybody else have an example or some ideas of where the money is? Some of the question of keeping your eyes and ears open and watching what comes to your email or what comes across on the blogs. Okay, so what get for the money? This is kind of what you're writing for. Is you get money for your salary, and it will, may probably pay your whole salary, but it might give you some release time so that you'll have time to work on your project or your research. It could use some money for research assistants, and I find them enormously helpful because if you're going to do data collection and data analysis, they are, ever so helpful in doing that. If you need, some of them will fund equipment, lots of them don't. The statistician, I love if I could have some money for statisticians and consultants because this will really help. These are skills that I don't have that they do, so that's a big help. So the direct costs, and even for $1,000, when I was first writing grants, I wrote those campus grants, and they only give $1,000, but I could get a research assistant. Could help me do stuff, and that really made things ever so much easier. It wasn't enough to release me from, but I wanted to do the project, and it certainly gave me some help. And then there's also this notion of indirect costs, and this is kind of a concept for everybody to understand about grants. And by your grants office likes faculty to go for the grants that pay big indirect costs, and this is money that comes to the university to support the office and the school nursing and all of the infrastructure that goes for getting the stuff that you will have from your campus. And none of this money comes directly to you, but does help give you the resources on the campus to help you write your grant or to implement it. And here's kind of an eye-opener. It was for me, and it is for just about everybody that doesn't understand it. None of this money exactly goes to you. You cannot write the checks on it. Your name is not on it. It goes to the university. But you will have control and responsibility for implementing it. So don't be surprised when the grant is the money comes to the research office of your campus. Okay, so that's, and what you can ask for will help you then decide how you want to, why you want to submit a grant. First of all, to get the help. So I'm thinking through if already is this a good thing to do. You want to be sure that and what you have match. Does your project meet the criteria for the grant? And if they're wanting to fund high-level scientific studies and you're just doing a classroom project, that probably isn't a good match. But if they're wanting to fund classroom projects, perfect. The other thing to think through is, do you have time to write the grant? And of course, the one answer is no, you never have enough time. The right answer is yes, I'm going to make time, and go ahead and do it because part of it's career survival, and part of it is if you want to have the money to do the things that you love, you're going to make the time to do. And then also think through if you get money, and that's almost worse, is when you do and you have to have the time to implement it. So think through how that's all going to work, and then because that you have the expertise and ability to carry it out. And another thing that you want to be sure is that this is something that fits with administrators, your department chair or your dean, and on the campus too, because if they don't think this is a good use of your time or they aren't going to support you, you're probably not going to get very far with it. And so in thinking through at the beginning, what do you need to sit here, and do they need letters of support? Does many of these grants now require your school to get matching funds? Now, it doesn't have to be actual money, but they may be matching by releasing you time to work on this grant, which of course is an expense to the school, and they want you to match other things that your university can contribute. For example, classrooms or computer support or things like that. So if it needs match funds, you have to be sure that those are available. And if you need to have some particular equipment, if you're doing clinical research and you need some equipment for that, then you need to be sure where it's going to come from. And then if you're going to be doing, if you're, requesting for anything that's going to be dealing with human subjects and you're going to be reporting the results of your study or your work, you need to have permission from the Institutional Review Board, the Human Subjects approval. So all of that, think that through and kind of, on the steps and so on. So that's all good. So think it all through kind of at the beginning. And here's something else to think about: the deadlines. And usually these deadlines for some of these grants come up very quickly. And the more you can anticipate, if they come up regularly, be ready. Those HRSA grants are predictably come out late, but they come out on pretty much of a regular basis. So can you get the deadlines met? And of course, you never have enough time, but if you can drop everything and chop and get it done, go for it. And then again, look at the criteria. What do you have to do for the budget? Is there a lot of detail there? And then as you're thinking through kind of at the beginning, find out who is the contact person at the agency that is offering the grant, and can you talk to somebody to run your idea with them to see if they think it's a good idea. And actually, this is a politically smart thing to do. And Tracy, kind of as you're moving through your process, you might, be able to see who in that school nurse association is the contact, and do they think your idea and fits with what you're wanting to fund, and sometimes saves you a whole lot of trouble. Now, the tip when you're in this contact, you're telling them about what you want to do, but if they say, no, we don't want that, then either have something else that you say, well, what's this, so that something similar, but that you'd also consider, or ask them what it is exactly they're trying to do, and then see if you can fit and reconfigure your proposal to kind of fit with what they're wanting to do, because whoever's funding really is, they're in contract with you, and they have their organization needs that need to be met as well. So you're trying to fit with that and help them. So there's that. Okay, here is a little bit of process, and again, as you start the path, you're going to want to know, what exactly is wanted from your at your school, and how do they go about doing this. But your research office should be able to give you some big help. But there's a lot of paperwork here. You need to do the cover letter, and there's university routing sheets and routing sheets from the agency. You always need to do some kind of abstract or a summary. You need to give the purpose, what it is that you're trying to get accomplished, and problem solving, and what's the need out there. And of course, the more you can articulate the need and make it sound like it's something really important, and that without your research that there'll be a big void in the world. So you kind of need to get the hook that's going to get their attention and why your project is important and why it fits with their missions. And you're going to write goals and objectives, your implementation plan, your outcomes, and your evaluation. Now, general nurses should be very good at this because in some ways this is just exactly the old nursing process. You're going to, or, writing a paper, this is Gail Ingersoll calls the logic. And all follows. Now, if your purpose and your goals don't match, something's off there. So you want to be sure that you're getting that, that's all aligned. And if you're how to go about implementing it doesn't fit with anything, that won't work either. So all that middle stuff align nicely. In the budget, you'll have to put down salaries and what it is that you're requesting. And again, if that doesn't align up with what you're doing in your grant, then that will raise flags. And again, the IRB, and usually there's charts and tables and appendices and so on. So that's generally speaking what most grants require, all these elements in some way, shape, or form. Some of them are 3-page grants, which are pretty much easy to, well, I won't say easy, but they follow the same things, or they could be 300-page grants, and they follow these same major headings. Keep your project together. Then, so now you're going to move ahead, and you're going to submit it. There's a university routing process, and of course, in order to meet the university's needs, you will have to have it done way ahead of the deadline that the granting agency wants. So this is again part of that planning ahead. So Tracy, when you are thinking about your grant, you'll need to think of the agency deadlines. Sometimes there aren't any, which is a big help. But if there are, be sure that you're planning in how the review process at Rutgers is going to how they route their grants. So be sure that it's complete. Have kind of a peer review. Some should look at this to be sure that it's logical and have a good sense. Faculty mentors. Some grant offices have reviewers that will look at this. It's a really big grant. Sometimes having a mock review, schools do this for some of the federally funded grants. They, a bunch of peers sit around and pretend like they're reviewing it as if they were the grant reviewers, and that's a great way to get some feedback and tune things up. And proof it, and of course, and be sure that you put each of the steps. So I'll stop here because I've rattled on here quite a bit. Any comments or questions at this point, particularly if you have submitted grants and want to add to any of this? Okay, making sense? See no other comments, I'll just keep going here then. And now I'm just going to go through a whole bunch of kind of in random order as I could come up with them. But anyway, these are things that we can do. Try to tell Tracy, since I know she's at least getting ready to do this. So anyway, make some contact with the agency, and that's kind of a plus because she knows the school nurse world, and she can probably, talk with the people at the funding and kind of, make a contact with them, because I think it helps there in the end when these proposals come in and they can say, oh, I remember talking to Tracy. She was perky and really knowledgeable about her subject. This should be a good one. We'll read it. So, your personal connections if you can. Something else that's helpful is if you can read the grants that have already been written, and all the better if they're to the same agency. So, and lots of the agencies will post up funded grants, the proposal on their website, so it's public information if it's a public agency that needs to be transparent. So sometimes you can see examples of grants. Certainly it's perfectly okay to ask somebody if they mind showing you the grants that they had written. And some of the grants offices keep examples too. So I find it helpful to look at, gives you some ideas, shows the format, things like that. If you're having to put a lot of information in about your school and the resources of the school and that kind of stuff, ask if there is, we call it boilerplate information that has already been written that fits into these grants. And again, your School of Nursing, if you're big and have a grants office or at the campus, see what they've already written so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And touch base with your grants office. They need to know that you're going to be doing this. Grants office at your school or at the campus level, wherever your first line of reporting is. And no end runs around the administrators. Your department chair, whoever you report to directly, needs to know first that you're thinking about doing this, and then it needs to be approved all the way up. And sometimes there's approval sheets before you can write these, start submitting grants. So do that. And, you want to be sure that you're getting support along the way and that they are, excited and approve this for you. In writing the grant, be on point, write it clearly. You don't need to go into a great detail unless it's asked for. So clear and succinct, less is more here. And to be sure that you're spinning your story in a way that the agency would say, oh, we've got to fund this because this is exactly what we're looking for here, that we want to know about this particular problem, how easy it is for faculty to adopt simulations. We need to know this so we help other faculty. So whatever it is that the agency is wanting to benefit out of this, you want to be sure that you are letting them know how your project is doing it. And evaluation plans, you saw in the template there, all these grants need to be evaluated, and they need to know how you're doing that. Sometimes working with somebody who is a grant evaluator is helpful so that you can write good plans that will show that the outcomes of your grant have been met. Okay, those are some things to think about. Still writing on here. Any comments or questions? Soon I'm going to really stop and ask for some because I think probably some people here in attendance who have written grants or are thinking about want to have some more specific information. All right, I'm doing my tips here, rambling around a little bit more for you, but sometimes the problem that you're wanting to solve and have funding for really is something that maybe you would think is an issue, but you want to indicate that it's linked to something bigger than what's going on at your school or in your community. Wanting to study tuberculosis, something about B in your community, you would want to then look and see what is the national picture about tuberculosis, its prevalence, and maybe you'd want to say in your community there's a disproportional number of cases, and your research is looking at what's going on and why that would be the case. So see if you can make some links to your local issue to national issues. If you're doing classroom projects, developing a simulation to teach patient safety, of course, patient safety is a huge issue. And if you can contribute a little bit to how simulations in your classroom might relate to helping people in other classrooms understand how to prepare students to safe practitioners, then it has more of a meaning than if you are just looking at it locally. And sometimes, these are really just projects, but that you can do, be replicated elsewhere. So it's okay to be just at the beginning of a project. You don't have to be full-blown. Do your homework. Ensure that you've done a good review of literature so you know what else has been done, particularly if you're going for some of the national level grants. And how the project is different. Tracy if there's been, and I know she's doing a lot of review of literature, but if she can cite that really nothing has been done, or if it's been done and she's taking the next steps to do it, I think that will make a much stronger impression on the funding agency. So be sure you know what you're doing fits in with projects, and how what you're doing either is building on them or fills a gap. Catchy titles, I think, were not too catchy, not cutesy, but ones that have a good, remember. Those that end up with, we call it HITS, a HITS, but it's for Health Information Technology Scholars. So, HITS, easy to remember, but it also has, the meaning. But when you're running this, you have to avoid the nursing jargon. I usually would, have my husband read some of my stuff so that if he understood it, I figure everybody else could too. So you get a lot of abbreviations and lingo in there. So try not to think of who your reader is at the other end. Let's see. You can think ahead as to what you're doing in your work for the scholars. You are doing stuff. You are doing papers. You are, doing things for school. You can think about this in terms of how this could end up to be a fundable project. So if you're thinking about a teaching strategy, or you're particularly focusing on a given clinical intervention in one of your courses, think about this in terms of how it can, what if you have some money to learn a little bit, to study the impact of any of it, what would it be? And can you do something here to contribute to the evidence for best practices, even from something that you're doing in your, in your classroom? And when we talk about writing for publication, I'm going to say the same thing to you. Anything you're doing now in your schoolwork should lead to one more thing, and that really is a healthy survival tip. That do ever do anything that can't have two other uses. Think through anytime you're going to do anything. Serve on a committee, write a paper, choose a topic to do presentation on for your class. Think of what the next steps are, and try to pick something that leads somewhere and has some impact. That's that philosophy, but it's a big simple tip. Okay, rattle on some more. Plenty of time. This does some time, and usually it's not released from your day-to-day duty. So be sure that you can carve it out and drop out some of the nonsense that you might be engaged in, and focus, on doing something that's meaningful. So be sure that you have some time. One thing, too, to have partnerships at the and interdisciplinary, too. So be sure that you are networking and working with others. So if a call comes that wants a partnership to things, you're already in position. And some partnerships that the scholars could be thinking about is your partnership with your mentor or faculty, because lots of times students can go along with what their faculty members are doing, so that would be good. One where I saw having relationships and partnerships was the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant. The collaboratives, that was one of the criteria for being selected to receive this fabulous faculty development grant here. And those schools that had partners, they were ready to go because they knew who they could put together. They'd work together. Another example was when the HRSA grant call for these technology development, faculty development. Diane Skiba, Pam Jeffries, and Marion Rizzo and I and Helen, we all worked together before in other projects. We knew each other. We knew each other's strengths and limitations too, and we could pull it together quickly because we had relationships. So you want to be sure that you are in relationships with people that can help you do grants. Know your other disciplines on your campus, or if you're in classes with students who are from other disciplines, keep them in mind, build those connections. Okay, know the buzz with the funding agency. These are not in any, this is all random, so I'm kind of jumping from topic to topic here, but to be connected with the agencies that are going to be funding your work. She's going to want to keep on top of the School Nurses Association, but I think some of her work, I'm probably making this up a little bit more than I should, but I think some of it had to do with technology, so she wants to connect with other agencies too. So some of your projects have different lists of them where you can seek funds from different kinds of places. So that, okay, the last flow, you, again, I'm back to Gail Ingersoll, she, that logic, it just has to be there. And, I've been on some review committees here recently and also some other kinds of committees where I'm reading applications that need to have some kind of sense. And when there is not, when A doesn't lead to B to C, it shows up. So be sure that everything that follows along logically. And if you're having trouble with that, ask for somebody to, kind of help you with being at it as you're in draft stages. All of the grants will want you to put your CV together. So, I've told you this many times. Keep that up to date because you just never know when you might need it. Somebody might ask you to be a grant with them, and quickly. So you need to have that ready just in case you're asked. So, there. All righty. What else? More here. Well, you need to know when you're sentenced to get to agency, you need to know your stuff here. You have to be concerned and remember that you're writing this for somebody who maybe doesn't understand the issue as much as you do, and want to have data and evidence. And if you don't have that at hand, you certainly need to be, spending gathering it. The HRSA grants, they are data. You need to have information about numbers of faculty and students and health problems in a particular agency in your area, and it's underserved and all kinds of stuff. So if they're wanting that, take a while to gather all that. So be sure that that you have it and have time to get it, and then that you're, again, being logical about the data and then what the data show in terms of what the need is for what you are seeking the funding. Okay, if by chance you're not funded, see if you can get some feedback as to what happened. Some grants give you very detailed feedback, and that's really helpful. And then you can go ahead and revise and use that feedback. If you are not getting any feedback, some agencies don't and won't, and you don't want to be bothering them to ask them for if they're not going to do it. But you also ask a colleague, I wasn't funded. Can you spot some areas where you think I could improve? Of course, you have your peer review ahead of time too, so that you're getting feedback before you send it in. But if figure out what happened. It's the same principle with write an article that's not accepted for publication. You want to be sure that you understand what happened, so you can learn from that. And same doing publication. If you spend all your time doing this, you want to have a plan B for if you're not funded. Sometimes you can just do it the way you've got it all thought through and worked out and lined up, and maybe you can figure out a way to do it without funding, or maybe your department chair or dean or somebody would give you some modest funds to go ahead and do it. Or there may be other places where you can submit the grant. So don't throw it away and don't forget it. You've put a lot of time in it, and so you have other uses in mind. And even if it's ended up writing an article from what you've learned, or the research that you did to get it all ready, sometimes that you could do that. My colleagues have resubmitted their grants. We say third time is a charm because they don't always get submitted, accepted the first time. But you take the feedback and you cry first a little bit, and then you will grab yourself and get back up on your feet and resubmit. So keep going, even if you are not accepted the first time. And this is the same as the Plan B thing, to ensure that you have something from this. And as you're pulling it together, you get enormous clarity about the issue and the problem and the what it is that you're seeking the funds about. So be sure that you have learned something from it. Another thing is about the cycle for call for proposals. I'll say on for a little classroom fund to get it on our campus from our teaching center. Every fall they're going to be sending out, and every spring they call for proposals for something to do with curriculum, something to do with teaching, something to do with technology, and try to have it all at the ready so that you can have something to submit. And the same goes true for on a bigger scale. So if you're doing exciting work and you monitor the cycle of when they're going to be calling for proposals, if it's a regular cycle, have something ready to submit on short notice, because for some reason most of these grants, it never seems like there's enough time, and people look at them and say, I couldn't possibly get it ready. But if you have stuff ready, you can pull it together quickly. So call it the ready. Oh, all righty. I'm trembling here. And I'm going to just stop, because I would love to hear what you're thinking at this point in time before I even go on further. So let's, questions, comments, the death by PowerPoint here. Sheila, steps to unmute.
Oh, can you hear me now? Huh?
I can, yeah.
All right. You know what? Why I think maybe people aren't talking much. I just know from me is that this is all very exciting, and I do have ideas that I would like to do. But I wonder, can I do this and at the same time somehow utilize this for working dissertation, or is this going in a whole different direction? Do you know what I mean? Like if I have a project that I could get a grant for, can it be something that I can use in my dissertation work? Because otherwise I'll be pulled so many different places. How does that work?
Well, it works by strategizing and being synergistic and being sure that one thing builds on another. So if you are doing some preliminary work and you think it could go for funding and it will help get the first step of something that you're doing, go for it. And if it's something that's preliminary, that you've got, the nation and you've done a paper on it, and you see a funding agency that doesn't require work that's going to put away too much, I'd say go for it. So if you think you're a match with something, and I'll preface this by saying, talk to your faculty member first, because you don't want to get pulled in too many different directions. The whole idea here is to be synergistic. And do I remember correctly that we're doing a little teaching project about looking at graphs?
Having the students themselves is not looking at photographs, taking photographs and doing narratives of older people.
Okay.
Both be the photographer and the interview with the life story.
Okay. So I'm just going to brain off of this, not knowing much more than that. But what you could do, probably in the long run, you're probably going to do something, much more about something else. But that, if you were to do a project that would find out what do the students see, and how can they reflect, and what are the narratives, what stories come out of the narratives, where you could get a little grant, analyze that, give you somebody, even hire somebody to do do the quality analysis of that with you or serve as a second person to read those, then you would find out something about that as a teaching strategy, but you'd also find out something about that in terms of clinical practice, and maybe that would be the springboard then to say what next steps need to be done in your research. And research is a building process, of course, and getting these grants is a building process. And grant agencies love to see on your Vita that you have received a grant, even a small one, because it shows that you know how to write a grant, that you're responsible for managing some funds, that you know how to put things together. So, again, something I work with doctoral students, I make sure that everyone submits something, even if it's not accepted, but usually 2 or 3 of 6 or 7 will get accepted. So that's kind of how I would synergize it. So if you can see that little, and maybe you're doing something else. I'm just picking this because it's something that I give an example from. But you can see how a classroom project, what this was an assignment, right?
This is a part of my teaching practicum. I had to come up with some idea.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's something you're doing anyway.
Yeah.
But it's something that you could take to the next step. Because for me, from a team perspective, this is huge. And I know I have said, and I'm going to say to you again, I'd love to see you write that up when it's done. So you have at least a publication out of doing this.
And that could help with technology, maybe putting the narratives or the visuals together to produce something that other people could see.
Sure.
Other schools.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would, encourage you to brainstorm about, where there's some funding, and if on the campus there's some teaching grants, or, a faculty member, maybe sometimes those grants go to the faculty, that the two of you could work together. I love to see teams because everybody benefits and nobody has to do all the work.
Okay. So this is the kind of thing you're talking about. So since you're doing it anyway, you might as well try to get the grant, even though you still have a dissertation to work on. It'll be different, yeah. Yeah,
and it kind of goes to that. Yes, nobody ever has enough time, but
right.
If you mind, it spins off into something and it builds some skills. Even if this never gets funded, I think depending on how you do Vitas at your school, you get on as a grant that was submitted, and you will have the experience of working through that. And and if you do it as a research project, and I think we talked once about the IRB and all that kind of stuff, but maybe it's worth it to see what that process is, and then you've got to build on when you take your next steps.
Okay.
Does that answer it? But synergize.
Yeah. It does answer it for me, and it does address the nervousness I feel when I hear, okay, here's something else to do. Like, it makes sense why I would want to do something else.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody on this session feels that same way, including me. All these opportunities, there's millions of them come by every day, and we want to. I want to do them all, but we can't. But we can synergize. So you can see another step, another output from something that you're doing. Then take it.
No, I actually do. I see an intervention going into senior centers with this, working actually in senior centers clinically. This, so that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it will put your dissertation in a different direction, but still building on the stuff that you've been reading. Yeah, I never want anybody to change.
No, my advisor would not like to hear that.
No, and I wouldn't suggest it to anybody. Okay. Well, did that give you some ideas?
Yes. How do I unmute? Mute again, huh?
Star 6.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks for sharing. It's a nice dialogue that I hope everybody kind of learns. So, anybody else have a question or comment at this point? Okay, well, I'm going to give some more tips, and I think maybe some more answers for Sheila here. So, I think we mentioned before, read the grants like the ones you're submitting. That's inspiring. If you have a chance, serve on review committees, or if somebody, your faculty member colleagues, write in a grant, ask if if we give them some peer review, or if you could look at it. National grant committees want just plain old students, or faculty. You don't need to be researchers to serve on those committees, but it gives you an enormous insight into how grants are selected. This is something for the students, for the scholars. Sign up to be a research assistant. Work with your faculty who are doing research, and if they network around and see who needs a research assistant. There's an amount of insight, and if you can collaborate and be on their grants, that would be great. Go to grant writing seminars, and I suspect those of you in doctoral programs are going to hear all this all over again. I hope you are, but there's lots of resources out. Then partnering, I would love to emphasize that, because if you collaborate here, it makes the work ever so much easier. And my research team, grant writing team, it's got so much more done than if any one of us had been doing it by ourselves. So, have a group of people that you like. Partner, work together in a small faculty group. Work within your course. And those of you that faculty, get your scholars, doing something scholarly here with you. And scholars, invite your faculty to move ahead here. So, be a team, share around, share the joy, and it all goes faster. Let's see. This is the last of the tips, and then I'm going to ask for questions and any more comments. Most campuses have a research office, and find out where they are and use the help that they have. Some of them, as I mentioned, will read and give you feedback. Lots of them, they all have help with the budget, so you can talk to somebody about that if you're doing a big grant. There's grant search engines, and sometimes there's grant search librarian on your campus, and if you can, with them, they can help you locate grants for your topics. I love for you to have had at least one little small, teeny tiny grant and start building your CV, because that CV, each time something on it, it sets the stage for something, the next thing that you want to do. So I'll again ask other tips or other questions that you want to ask. I know this is overwhelming to everybody sitting and listening. It kind of makes my heart beat too, because it's just, it's hard to be able to do for all the right reasons. We need to get the evidence built. We need to, you are the leaders and the scholars here, so we're counting on you to help us build evidence for practice in all dimensions of nursing here. So faculty, mentors, scholars of all cohorts, we're looking forward for you to go ahead and do great things. So any suggestions and comments? And Lynn, I do see that you gave us a couple more here. I'm going to flip here this last slide too while people are thinking of their questions. Here's some resources, and Lynn gave me a few more. Lynn, can you put out again to the whole group, or
sure, I will. That's
yeah, because the more we can have, and Lynn, after that, I know you've done some probably grant writing. I don't know if you have any more tips you want to put on the table, but any of the faculty or other scholars that want to share anything or ask questions?
I mean, my grant writing hasn't been an area of research, so I think I would defer to what you said and maybe what some of the other faculty who are on the call have had the experience to do it. I think your overall macro tips, just made a heck of a lot of sense. But while you were talking, I've gone to the National Student Nurse Association website that has some scholarship opportunities, and then directed me over to Discover Nursing. So there wasn't much at this particular moment, but those sites change and get refreshed, and so I wanted to make sure that the faculty prep scholars had those as two other websites
Okay,
check in.
great. Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, you know, grant isn't all to support research. It's to support generating knowledge from all kinds of sources. So if you were working on a classroom project, and I think Sheila's practicum project is a good example of that. Right now, we don't know. I mean, I haven't done a lit review, but we don't know what the impact of having students take pictures and reflect on them, what that is. I think there's probably some literature about that in general, but this would be a fabulous thing for faculty members to know if this is a strategy that works or not. And starting classroom is where it starts. And out of the classroom into the public domain is what we're trying to do, and that's the scholarship. That's the scholarship of teaching and learning and the scholarship of being a faculty member. Other questions or comments? Okay, I think Lynn is probably still trying to, and I can copy that and paste it back.
I had put it on there for everyone to see right
now. You do. I see it now, Lynn. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's 2 more links for you guys. And these that are up here for the resources. This is about grants, and actually I got this more or less from Googling, so you can do the same darn thing, and there's a lot of good tips out there too. And this is, next steps for you. You know what you're doing.
Does Minnie have a question, or is that just?
Oh, I'm sorry, Minnie. Yeah, thank you, Lynn.
No problem.
Go ahead, Minnie.
Maybe I just saw the hand up.
Yeah, *6, Minnie, if you want to comment to us. Takes them to get unmuted. Okay, maybe Minnie just has her hand raised, but *6, Minnie, if you want to talk to us. But here's what to do for your next steps. You all know what your projects are, so find out where the funding to do them, even if they're just in your classroom, or even just for the paper you're doing or your teaching practicum. You could somebody in your school who has a grant and ask them about it. And I would love to see you all get a grant here in the next 2 while you're still scholars. And then, network around to see if somebody needs a research assistant. And usually they're paid, so maybe if it's another way of getting a little more income, but also to have the experience of working with a researcher. So, and those of you that are doctoral students, that is almost a must here. So for sure do that. Oh, any other questions? And Minnie, if you're trying through, I'll stop talking for a minute. Anybody else? Okay, so I'll do my marketing. Next webinar is on February 11th. All of you can come see Reese, recent PhD grad whose area of expertise and research is in unfolding case studies. And we're going to try to do this as a workshop webinar where we hope that you can be in your collaboratives, ideally, and if not that, at least with your own cohort of scholars at your school. And we're going to show us we're going to do role play on how to what an unfolding case study is. This will be first, I think, in webinar history, trying to do a role play in a webinar, but we're going to try to pull it off. And then she's going to show us how to write the case studies, and then we'll have him to get a draft going. And I'm thinking that if you're working together, you can extend your work here and end up maybe with some case studies that can be shared at your school or, across the collaborative or across the whole CLC for that matter. So any other last comments? Okay, I'm wrapping up. We're pretty close to being on time, which is when I end up, that's a good thing that we can end on time. Oh, Minnie was telling us she could when it was unmuted. So Minnie, if you still hear me and you can type in your question or comment, I'll try to say it to everybody. I don't know what happened about the mute situation. talking, but we couldn't hear you. Oh, if you want to try again, 6. And he wants to tell us he's writing a grant. Of course, we're going to wish you good luck. You want to tell us to whom and about what, and if there's anything that we can do to help, let us know. I know there's HRSA grant cycles coming up because I have some friends who are writing Fast and Furious too. Oh, let's see. And Minnie's writing a HRSA AET grant, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, but okay, he's going to unmute the line so Minnie can talk. And I was going to tell you that some of the scholars, that, let's see, at
no longer muted.
William Patterson.
You are now muted.
Minnie, we opened the lines. Can you speak? Can you? Any grant is advanced nursing education to support students who need tuition support. Yeah, those HRSA grants are really fabulous. And I was telling you, William Patterson, 2 of the faculty there wrote HITS grants for that. Faculty development. So there's some faculty who they're so quick and easy to write, and it's flying on the Vita, and they'll have a nice opportunity to integrate some technology into their curriculum. So that. So I'm ready to wrap up. Anyone? Okay. Well, it's Friday afternoon. You guys are ready to start the weekend. So I wish you a good semester. We'll see you in February. Stay warm, stay safe, and thank you for participating. So we're done, and we can take off the recording.